Welcome to the Gone Fission Podcast, your one-stop source for news about the emerging nuclear renaissance and environmental cleanup of Department of Energy sites across the nation. Now, here's your host, Michael Butler.
Hello, and welcome to the Gone Fission Podcast. Today is Monday, March 9th, 2026. If you haven't subscribed to the Gone Fission Podcast, I invite you to do that now, so you don't miss any future episodes. As the International Waste Management 2026 conference kicks off in Phoenix today, we're presenting a special episode of the Gone Fission Podcast. We're looking back on the 40-year career of a well-known leader in the world of environmental cleanup at Department of Energy facilities. Our guest today has been a fixture at Waste Management for years. He sits on boards of major industry organizations, and most recently, he has led one of the toughest environmental cleanup challenges in nuclear history, cleanup of the Oak Ridge Reservation in Tennessee. His name is Ken Rueter. He is President and Chief Executive Officer of United Cleanup Oak Ridge, or UCOR, and he's retiring at the end of this month. Over 4 decades, Ken has made quite a name for himself in nuclear facility cleanup in a career that has touched both coasts and almost every major DOE facility. From Hanford to Savannah River to Oak Ridge, Ken has led teams in some of the most challenging environmental cleanup work in the world. In his last stop at Oak Ridge, he led the completion of teardown of the historic Oak Ridge gaseous diffusion plant, one of the biggest environmental cleanup projects in history. The clean land that resulted opened the door to the nuclear renaissance and has underscored the meaning of UCOR's trademark tagline, "Clean up today for a nuclear tomorrow." Today, more than 25 companies have located at the East Tennessee Technology Park, investing $12 billion and creating hundreds of jobs in fields ranging from advanced reactors to specialized nuclear fuel, uranium enrichment, and more. I caught up with Ken in his final days as UCOR CEO, and we took a journey back across his years in nuclear cleanup and a look at what the next chapter looks like for this seasoned executive. We'll have that conversation in just a minute. But first, let's find out what Mike Deane, the Nuclear Average Joe, is up to this week. What's up, Mike?
Nukes, happy Tuesday evening. I am just walking in the door. It's been a busy day. It's been a great day. No complaints, per usual. Today, quickly, I want to talk about, well, nuclear, of course, baby, but let's talk about power uprates. Excuse me while I take my laptop out because I'm never done working. Power uprates, people. This is what we call, I don't know if all nukes say this, I heard a couple nukes say this, but leaving money on the table. What is a power uprate? It's essentially taking the NSSS, taking different components within a power plant, within the core, and upgrading it. These aren't power upgrades, these are power uprates. So you're upping the rate of power, right? So how do you create more megawatts electric from one nuclear power plant or reactor without building an additional reactor on site or building an SMR? You do what's called a power uprate. You can increase the megawatt electric output by increasing the heat, increasing the coolant system capacity, tons of different things. The steam generator, a lot you can do. Dare I say there's 7 to 9 gigawatts sitting out there in terms of BWRs and PWRs that haven't gone through power uprates at all. they've done these. They've done them. They've done them in the 70s, 80s. They talked about it in the 90s. They planned for it in the early 2000s. And then Fukushima happened. So you can Google it. It's public information. I'm not going to be the one to tell you because conflict of interest and all that good jazz. But you can Google it. There are companies, owner-operators, utilities, literally as we speak, that are going through power uprates. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for the community. It's a really good thing for AI. But at the end of the day, it's leaving money on the table that we've got to collect as an industry and commit to it and do it. Execute, baby. That's what it's all about. Nukes, it's been a minute, so I do apologize. It's been extremely busy, but I'm thinking about you all. Hope you're thinking about me. Let's go nuke, baby. Have a great Tuesday evening.
Well, our guest now is Ken Rueter. Ken is president and CEO of United Cleanup Oak Ridge, or UCOR. And UCOR is the Department of Energy's lead environmental contractor for the Oak Ridge Reservation in Tennessee. In some ways, you might say this episode was 4 decades in the making. Today, on the occasion of Ken's pending retirement, we're going to look back on his 40 years of service in the nuclear industry and reflect on some of his most impressive accomplishments, and it's a rather long list. Hello, Ken, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. We've gotten to do this a number of times. I don't know exactly on this theme, but I've always appreciated very much on the great voice you have been for telling our story, and I don't mean just UCOR's, but I mean our industries.
Well, thank you very much. So we're really glad to have you with us today. Ken, you and I have known each other for a while, actually more than a decade, since you first became UCOR CEO. And first of all, I want to congratulate you on your retirement. And I know our listeners and viewers join me in that and in thanking you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been an amazing time in this industry.
Well, we're recording this podcast just days before your retirement date in March. I'm sure you've had some time for reflection. You've been overseeing one of the most challenging environmental cleanup projects in the Department of Energy complex. I'm wondering now, at this stage of your career, what are your top-of-mind thoughts on what you and the UCOR team have accomplished during your tenure? What are the things you're most proud of?
I'd say it's 3 things as it relates to here in East Tennessee and ultimately delivering the largest environmental cleanup in the history of this country. And maybe one could argue the world. The first and foremost is that since the day we showed up here in 2011, which I had the opportunity to come and join this team as their chief operating officer, working for someone I felt was an absolutely amazing leader in our industry, that devoted 50 years to it, being Leo Sain, God rest his soul. It is the commitment we made, and I'll never forget it, that we all personally made to our future workforce that was going to make up UCOR, which is we are going to provide you a work environment that if you so choose, you will go home the same way you came to work every day. And so, you and I have talked about it a number of times, and we refer to that as the culture of caring. We were going to instill a culture of caring, and that was going to be in all facets of the company, across all organizational structures in an integrated capacity, so that at the end of the day, we were all going to go home the same way we came, even though the hazards we face, one could argue, are the greatest hazards that anybody could face in the nuclear industry. And I could not be more proud of. Matter of fact, I just commended the entire workforce, all 20, almost 700 of them now, that of what we have accomplished in the form of what we communicated in our annual voluntary protection plan performance report. that we are now a zero severity injury company, meaning we had no days away, no lost workday cases. We work with excess of 4 million job hours, in which 60% of those are physically facing the hazards in the field. And our recordable injury rate is at an all-time low when our production rates are at an all-time high. And that rate is 8 times below the national average for the NACE code, that area that we work in. So to me, that's the culture of caring. Mm-hmm. And so that's the first thing. The second is what I refer to as the culture of excellence. And the culture of excellence is, as I reflect on this job, is progressively in a safe manner, which we've already talked about that, continue to accelerate environmental liability reduction to meet our moral, ethical, and statutory duties to the American taxpayer in the most cost-efficient way we can, aligned to the opportunities in our industry. So, you and I've talked about this before. We now refer to that as clean up today for a nuclear tomorrow. And the fact that this team currently sits with having delivered the environmental cleanup against the original federal baseline 6 years early, starting with the East Tennessee Technology Park 4 years early, which then positioned that for the nuclear renaissance, and a decision that the commercial industry is making to cite those new OEMs or original equipment manufacturers here in East Tennessee. And so, that to me is the culture of excellence. And starting all the way back in 2011 with roughly 1,200 folks to now where we sit with roughly 2,700 folks, that thread, or you want to call them links in the chain, have been built over time to get to this point, and with no weak links, right? That's the culture of caring. And so, and then the third item that is essentially a personal commitment I feel I made to everybody is that we're going to figure out a way how to run this company, which is now almost $800 million a year organization, successfully and beneficially under a shared governance model. And what I mean by that is that everybody who wants to take a seat, obviously at this virtual table, because it's 2,700 plus folks, are going to be offered that seat, and they're going to be offered the opportunity to have an inclusive voice in how we govern this enterprise in the best interest of the organization, in the best interest of them as individuals, in the best interest of our stakeholders in our community, so that at the end, when all this mutual equity has been accumulated, and we can look at all the numbers, that was never done at their personal expense or somebody sitting to the right or left of them at this virtual table, or at the expense of Tennesseans. And so I call that the pathway to the middle class. How, that's our why, or I guess I would personalize it to me. That's been my why, in that all of this can be a cumulative growth in series of equitabilities and opportunities. So those that are underserved can now find their pathway to the middle class, doing some of the best work for this nation. Kind of sounds like Manhattan Project 1.0, doesn't it?
It sure does. Yeah.
Now manifesting itself here, to the challenge the Secretary has given us regarding Manhattan Project 2.0. And so I'm very proud of this point, that if you look at the median wage of folks that are participating in cleanup today for a nuclear tomorrow through this company, their median wage is now 2 times that of the Appalachia. So that is their pathway. We have been their pathway to the middle class. And so I feel so good about that. We've done it in partnership with our labor and union brothers and sisters. We've done it in partnership with our university consortium partners. So no job family's been left behind, and so everybody has flourished together. To me, that is a great example of the shared governance approach or concept working.
Well, all of those things you mentioned are certainly a source of pride, and I think that the workforce and the community as a whole and the entire state can be grateful that those opportunities have been created by UCOR over the last decade and a half. Let's zero in on the East Tennessee Technology Park just for a minute. You talk about cleanup for a nuclear tomorrow. Cleaning up the ETTP was a monumental task, but it was one that opened the door to opportunities in this nuclear renaissance. And I wonder if you could talk for a minute about how important cleanup was in creating that environment that you're enjoying now with these new companies coming in with their technology, making Tennessee the #1 state for nuclear according to the American Nuclear Society, and creating the kind of the renaissance that is going to lead us into the future for nuclear.
Yeah, so really all that kind of coalesced itself from a strategic standpoint with a realization. And actually, when I came back from my 1-year assignment at Savannah River as their CEO, that I came back here in 2014 to be the CEO of then UCOR, all with the idea that we had two things in front of us and the belief that they had to happen. One is we needed to accelerate the cleanup of the former K-25 sites or gaseous fusion facilities, because the longer you hold them, the more time value of money you hemorrhage. So that's the whole thing we always tell our kids, or now in my case, I have teenage grandkids, that, hey, if you got to have a credit card and you got to have a balance, you don't pay the minimum on it, because you get to pay the minimum for the rest of your life by design. Excess facilities, whether they're radiological or chemical, are the same thing. And so we came up with a strategy in which we would drive acceleration, because $1 we spent today at that point in time would be 60 cents on the dollar more valuable and productive for us than in the future, because nothing hemorrhages the time value of money more than a large legacy facility. So that was the accelerated cleanup and a strategy. But then building a strategic plan, which you're familiar with it. Remember Vision 2016, Vision 2020, and then ultimately Vision 2024, was that the belief that this renaissance was coming because of the fact that this nation needed to close the nuclear life cycle, and that the closure of that would bring a wave of, I won't go as far as saying that we thought anything about AI or data centers or anything like that, but that the growth of industry in general, thus the need for power, was going to be imminent, based on the plans that the state of Tennessee, and at that time the Haslam administration, was sharing with us, that then fast forward carried over to the Lee administration. And so we knew we needed to zipper together accelerated cleanup to economic reuse of brownfield and greenfield parcels. So we also then built a comprehensive reindustrialization strategy or plan that then had, as parcels completed, they would reach what's referred to in today's vernacular an end state, and then would be accelerated through a deeding process or a leasing process And that all started, with, companies that they're not here anymore, but they were sort of the groundbreakers of the brownfield reuse initiative, like Kochi Pharmaceutical as an example. And so that then started connecting dots to effectuating our strategy that buying down environmental liability and accelerated capacity wouldn't be done as an additional expense to the American taxpayer and to Tennesseans, but to their benefit, both in economic development, being the OEMs that we know have now cited there, and we've all heard all the announcements, but also for also for historic preservation, right? There was a national decision made to cite part of the 409th National Park of this country here, commemorating the amazing things that the men and women that built K-25 and delivered the Manhattan Project, signifying that and recognizing the history of that and what it meant to winning the Great War. So, and then additionally, you're aware of this. There were a lot of lands that were acquired that ultimately never became brownfield or industrial. They were buffer, if you will, to the secret city. And so how do we get that land back in the hands of Tennesseans for recreational conservation use and improved livability within the Oak Ridge corridor? And so that strategy then bore out cleanup today for a nuclear tomorrow, in which now we sit here today, 3,300 acres returned for conservation and recreational reuse by Tennesseans. And more than Tennesseans, because when I look at those rec areas anymore and go by them and take my grandkids to them, I see license plates from Missouri and Arkansas and PA and Maryland, and you can go on. And then 100 acres being devoted, and now the 409th National Park of our country. And I feel very good about that. I mean, I take my grandkids to there. We go to the History Center, Interpretive Center. They're kind of excited that granddad's been a part of that. And you go there and you have to, on a Saturday, look for a parking spot. Isn't that great?
That is good.
And then roughly now 2,500 acres fully commercialized reuse that has then led to the announcements and the establishment of the nation's first nuclear innovation hub. And this is Ken's view. I'm not saying this is where everybody else is at, but I firmly believe will be one of the locations that will be declared to be a nuclear life cycle innovation campus. Because you've got all these major OEMs that have cited in there, all with maturing technologies that when you integrate them all together, along with what UCOR delivers here, is a closed nuclear life cycle. And it's not been done anywhere else in the United States. I mean, many have tried and are still trying, but we are here.
Let's talk about partnerships for a minute. Ever since you've been at UCOR, you've stressed the importance and the value of partnerships in accomplishing your cleanup mission. In fact, partnerships has its own section in your annual report every year where you detail what some of those are. Talk a little bit about why you think partnerships are important, what kind of partnerships you've managed to forge while you've been CEO, and what role that's played in the success.
Yeah, so when I look at partnerships, and you may have seen our saddle diagram before on how the established partnerships build up to enabling our ability as a partnership or a shared governed enterprise deliver to the state of Tennessee and to the federal government. And so at the top is obviously the customers, and again, that's the state we reside in and deliver our work in, and then obviously the contracting authority, which is the federal government. They're first and foremost, they're at the center of the partnership, and that's absolutely critical. my view on partnering is that it is a completely new dimension from being a vendor and a supplier. Doesn't mean we don't carry out our statutory duties, whether they're called out in terms and conditions or things like that. But that's just the price of admission. That's not the end point. And so if I go to kind of our typical how we reflect our partners, at the base of it is the people who do the work every day. So I think most folks know that we have extensive relationships with two principal departments within the AFL-CIO. That's the Metal Trades Department, which delivers the craft to us in a partnership. Far extends past typical collective bargaining to provide us the skilled men and women that operate and maintain our nuclear facilities. And we have quite a few of them because they're an integral part to how we carry our work out. They predominantly is how we disposition and treat the waste that's generated from the cleanup side. Going on to the cleanup side, that's the Building Trades Department, sometimes referred to as the North American Building Trades Union. That is where the bulk of our craft comes, and is absolutely integral because they are the ones who execute what I refer to as the 4Ds. They decommission the building, they decontaminate it, they deactivate it, and they demolish it, and then they haul it. And then the O&M folks, they treat it, disposition it, and then ship it to its final disposal site. And so those two partnerships are absolutely fundamental to what we do. It's the place of, people have heard me say before, is that I promised myself I would never lose sight of the critical importance of that. Because if you were to go back 45 years ago, you would find Ken on that other side of the table. 18 years old, general labor, really learning what it means to do work and be responsible for it, to pride in craftsmanship. That is fundamental. That's why it's the foundation of our partnership. You move up from that, then it's it's our community, it's our stakeholders, and that's regionally, that is locally, that is at a state, and then is at a national level. We have a series of very critical partners, but from a local standpoint, that is the two counties, Roane and Anderson, and then the city of Oak Ridge. To us, that makes up the Oak Ridge corridor, and those are the municipalities, in their different forms that make it up. Our fundamental partnership commitment to them is that we will be the best corporate citizen to you that we can be. And that means more than, photo ops with big paper checks and things like that, but a realization that we live in these communities and they have allowed us to site our business here, and they continue to support us being here. Because, Mike, as well as I do, if you are in a toxic or prickly or hostile relationship with the place that is your company's address, you're not going to last very long. And so we have very strong partnerships at the local level. You then go to the regional and state level, integral partners, and I would say culminating with something that a company took as a great honor. I was humbled by it, which is to then sit on the governor's Nuclear Energy Advisory Council, which has really paved the path now for all the economic outcomes under the nuclear renaissance. But that partnership, long before that council, started with Governor Haslam and his support for the accelerated cleanup of the East Tennessee Technology Park. But then again, all all the General Assembly partners that exist, the senators, the representatives, and then I would extend those partnerships then to the at the federal level or the national level, whether that's in the Forrestal building with the with the folks in EM, NE, or even up on the 7th floor, commonly referred to, I guess, as the horseshoe. Great partnerships with the secretary, deputy secretary of every administration, and then jump over to the legislative side, and I would be doing a terrible. I just did an Inside Tennessee thing, and had a discussion with them, and I felt the same way, and that's why I brought it up. Be doing a terrible disservice to Senator Alexander and not only the leader he was, the statesman he was, but what he enabled for us to do our work. The partnership with him, where it all started, and then handed off naturally to Congressman or Chairman Fleshman on the energy and water side, is absolutely fundamental. Because I remind anybody who will listen to me, you can be the best in the business you do. Nobody can do better than you. But if somebody won't finance your work and invest in you, make you investment worthy, then you don't get to do your work. If you don't get paid, you don't get to take the field of play. You don't get to win the game. And that partnership, starting with the senator and all that he did, then moving on to the congressman, to the chairman now, is an absolutely critical partnership. Mm-hmm. And then I'd be remiss in not offering then the kind of final element in the saddle, because I already talked about who's at the top being the customer, is our teaming, small business teaming partners. Our business is a bit unique. You can include pre-selected teaming small business partners who get evaluated as part of the major company. Let's call them UCOR, by the federal government, to ultimately determine who the winner is of these large contracts. And so our small business teaming partners have been absolutely amazing, all the way from the start of capturing the job to then building what we sold and finishing what we started. And that is Longenecker and Associates, Strategy, and RSI Intech, which is Arctic Slope Regional Corporation owned. Those specific companies, and specifically John Longenecker as it related to our LNA, John Patterson related to Strategy, and Brad Spears and Allison Getzi at RSI. We wouldn't be, without those partners, we wouldn't be, just like the other partners, we wouldn't be sitting here today. All Ken is at the end of the day is sort of a cheerleader and a talking head. It's all those partners coming together to center around a common why, and be the ones who deliver, the what, and then deliver the workforce that delivers the how. If you like the golden circle analogy. So
mm-hmm. Let's unpack that just a little bit. What you talked about with obviously you take partnership very seriously. With respect to the Department of Energy, UCOR and you personally are held in very high regard by DOE for the work that's being performed at Oak Ridge, and your award fees are always in the upper percentile, and you get other recognition from the department. How does that feel in terms of the work you're doing? That is your customer. What do you think? What do you think is primarily responsible for the respect that DOE has for UCOR and for you?
I actually think it's successfully completing our delivery model. And what I mean by that is we have a fairly simple one, but it's very meaningful with regard to our application of it and producing, using federal contract terms, notable outcomes for the customer, and staying aligned with that. So first and foremost, in our delivery model, you have to be entrusted, or you have to capture your work, and obviously they're an integral part. So their first vote of confidence in us, in my opinion, starts in that quadrant. Nothing is sole sourced in our business. So at the end of the day, you go through an exhaustive competition. I personally have been through 5 of them, and winners or losers are picked. I'm very thankful that UCOR won 2011, won 2022, won. So that's the first vote of confidence. That's the first award fee score, if you want to call it that. But then how we ensure that we're going to deliver for that partner is in our delivery model. We're going to do unto others like we want done to ourselves. I'm sure my team is absolutely exhausted with hearing this, but we're going to build what we sold, and then we're going to finish what we start. We make commitments in our original offer. Obviously the customer picked us because of that. It's more than an implied commitment, and we don't win anything at all costs, meaning shenanigans, liar's poker, whatever term you want to use. And so we're going to build what's in that technical or management approach, or those task orders using today's vernacular, and we're going to find ourselves with a successful delivery, and that is then going to position you for not only you're meeting your milestones or your objectives, but also the report cards you get, whether that's contractor performance annual report, CPAR, or the award fee score, because at that point you've taken our business is tough, Mike, this, and so there's a lot of emotion in our business. There's a lot of moving parts in our business. At any one day you could be in a place that everybody's not in a happy state, and so excessive subjectivity can come into play. But how you normalize that is meeting your commitments and doing unto others like you'd like done to yourself. Just think of I always tell folks, think of the doctor who's working on your children. What is the greatest expectation you have of them? They're going to build what they sold, and they're going to finish what they start. Mm-hmm. Nothing's more important to you. Or I apply that now to my grandkids. And then lastly, in our delivery model is the telling your story. And that is a joint partnered collaboration with your community, your stakeholders, and your customer, in this case the federal government, to be telling that good news, because no one will tell your story better than you. So don't give your voice away. And Mike, you've been a huge part of that. You have helped us for a decade, framing up, making sure that if we score an A on capture our work, build what we sold, and finish what we start, that the final quadrant of the delivery model tell our story, that we get an A. I mean, you've been we owe you a thanks for that. You have been a huge part of that. This is part of it, doing things like this, but you're an integral part of our team. So that, and then by completing that delivery model, not only do you then get those, let me say, balanced and earned scores, right? If you wrote I'm showing my age here. If you wrote the best essay in your blue book, if you remember that, most of your audience won't know what that is, and you connected with the professor, okay, the grader, with it, and then you're going to get an A on the report card, right? And better yet, you get the opportunity to do it again. That's when you complete our delivery model, you're positioned to go capture more work or grow pathway to the middle class. But that whole thing we talked about.
Mhm.
That's why I think we have done well for this customer, because we have done unto them what we expect others to do to us.
Well, I can vouch firsthand for the fact that you're a big advocate of telling your story. And of course, you do that very well. And you have an emphasis on it that I think extends down into the entire organization. Let's staying on the partnership theme for just another minute. I want to talk about the state of Tennessee a little bit more. You are on the governor's Nuclear Advisory Council, and you've already referenced that what's going on now with the state spans back across a couple of administrations now with Bill Haslam and Bill Lee. Bill Lee has really taken the reins here in terms of promoting the state as a home for nuclear industry. And you've developed, the cleanup has developed a lot of new partners for you. Companies like Orano and Oklo and Kairos and others who've come onto the cleaned up East Tennessee Technology Park site. So you've got a whole new dimension of partnership that you didn't have before cleanup was accomplished. How do you see Governor Lee's his funding of nuclear recruitment and the emphasis he's putting on making Tennessee the #1 nuclear state and keeping it there? How important is that to you from the standpoint of the work you've done on cleanup?
Yeah, it's at the core. I mean, I again, I know he's gotten a lot of thanks and recognition for. He absolutely deserves it. First and foremost, I remember meeting the Governor Lee, the very first time, actually when he was on his campaign trail, and we had two fundamental discussions, one around the importance of the people doing the work and how they rally out of the Appalachia to do that, and his value for that as it relates to being one of the state's largest, at that time, largest mechanical contractors. And then the second one was that the belief that there was amazing opportunity in the birthplace of nuclear, and that being in the state of Tennessee. And then that is carried on. And so my point being is this is a person who didn't have much engagement in our industry, but certainly has a lot of experience in heavy industry, mechanical industry, and did the necessary things and put the necessary people around him in the form of his commissioners to gather the necessary information to make an informed decision as it relates to what to advocate for and what not to, and what to lead in the state to maximize the opportunity. He has a history of being an amazing economic development focused governor, and with all those successes, whether they were in the healthcare industry, whether they were in the automotive OEM side of things, then had enough foresight, strategic thinking, and active listening of the commissioners around him and industrial folks like our company, that he then said, well, we can apply those formulas that we used in other industries to the nuclear industry because the time is now. So fate favors the prepared, and
Right.
then fortune follows it. And the other is that he did in my opinion, did a very above average job taking the handoff from the previous administration. So all the momentum, it's the kind of same thing I tell our team. Boy, we built a lot of momentum, a lot of stock value, a lot of acceleration factor through ETTP. we are never going to give that back. We got to carry that through Y12 and ORNL and those valleys to continue to meet, our principal objective: clean up today, nuclear tomorrow. I really feel like we've seen that governor do that here, and with an emphasis on materiality. What do I mean by that? His advisory council was not an industry talk group. Okay. As a matter of fact, I'll never forget the kickoff meeting with him with regard to his expectations that at the end, on some pretty tight timelines, because he knew what was coming and we needed to be ready for it, that we weren't going to have, coffee sessions and chat. The things we owed him, and we owed him 2 major deliverables, all had to be elements that had demonstrated materiality. And here's the outcome of it. That laid the groundwork for people like myself, people like Jeff Smith, people like Don Moll, to immediately be ready to engage.
These are folks from ORNL and TVA that you're referring to.
Yes, yeah. To be ready to engage the Oranos of the world when they came in. So to me, there was no serendipity about being ready for Orano showing up on the back end of the Nuclear Energy Advisory Council, and not only, it's kind of an ABC approach, right? Always be closing. Not only being boots on the ground in that engagement with Orano, with John Luke, with the Mullis Corporation, who was leading the siting effort, but also to be that connection point back to the ECD Commissioner Stuart McWhorter, and back to Governor Lee and the governor's office. I believe the deputy governor at that time was Butch Ely. That to ready everybody, and then that permeates down into the local, right into Roane County, and where they stood, into the city of Oak Ridge, where they stood, the importance of standing up an Oak Ridge Development Corporation, which has been around for a bit now, that's being led by Mike McGill, and bringing all that together to win, capture your work, the Orano outcome, and how the best place they could be was at what's referred to as the SSP2 site, and how we would ensure we got that site delivered to them by, now 2026. All that emanated from the Nuclear Energy Advisory Council, the governor's initiatives. This brought and made this, the concept of a nuclear innovation hub, real, right on the eve, obviously, of the governor's administration being successful with the siting of Blue Oval, which is the Ford OEM, $6 billion plus facility. What's more than a facility, enterprise in West Tennessee. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's the kind of vision this governor has across the economic development front. I mean, he has many more. I'm not need to advocate for him in other areas, but I got to live this one live, right, and be part of it.
Ken, we're coming toward the end of our time here. I do want to cover a couple of more things with you before we close. One is workforce development. You've been a very strong advocate of keeping the pipeline filled with workers, both for your own operation on cleanup and also for the industry as a whole in Tennessee and nationally. I know you have a very robust intern program there that brings in more than 40 interns from many colleges in multiple states, and you've got agreements with various colleges and universities. Can you just talk for a minute about the role of workforce development and how important it is in keeping things moving in terms of cleanup and the nuclear renaissance.
Absolutely, it's in the top three for when I use my little acronyms and terms, which is people, plant, and programs. You got the three P's. That, if they're not balanced and you don't have them in a stable configuration, then you're not going to get there. So we're talking about the people part of that balanced triangle. The other is programs and plant. And so if you don't have the people, you don't build anything and you don't run anything. And this is a high compliance, high challenging world or industry, and it has a very broad job family. So what series of job families? And so what I think really made the difference for our workforce development strategy was making the conscious decision that we weren't going to narrow ourselves to any targeted job family, that we were going to build a series of programs, relationships, partnerships across a whole spectrum of organizations that would best suit a specific job family. And you made a mention of one, the intern program, the university consortium, and another one that has made a huge difference is the East Tennessee Apprentice Readiness Program, working in partnership with our labor management program. We've brought in over 300 apprentices through the East Tennessee Apprentice Readiness Program. So there's been a renewal, here in East Tennessee of young men and women, moving into the craft ranks to deliver this outcome. And so, you have, for us, we have roughly 60 job families, and we have workforce development partnerships and agreements that serve all of those. And in this most recently, as you've seen in the press, have inked new deals that put a higher emphasis now on nuclear workforce development. So partnerships with Roane State on the nuclear technology programs. The latest announcement with UTK and the Department of Nuclear Engineering to actually establish another minor in the area of nuclear safety and authorization licensing basis development. We have a huge generational gap in that area. And the latest announcement in which we signed an agreement with the American Nuclear Society on a certified nuclear professional program, so that folks that are not born and bred in the nuclear industry can join and engage ANS and get a PE of nuclear, if you will, and become a certified nuclear professional. And that across as many job families. You can do a tech version of that versus, hey, I'm a mechanical engineer and I want to have a more engineering related certified nuclear pedigree. And all those are different examples of serving all of our job families with partnerships with, again, University of Tennessee System, Tennessee Tech, Florida International, Georgia Tech. I mean, we have a whole series of them that deliver on this, and better yet, deliver it. There's no pride in authorship. The people that are produced from those different programs, we only capture about 30% of them. The rest of them go into our industry, but from our point of view, with that, rising tides raise all boats. From that, we know that we're not going to get in a bidding war for talent, because the industry can't support that, and it doesn't serve anything other than unrealistic wage escalation. So it's been a very, very successful thing. We've resourced almost 1,800 people through all those different programs, aligned to the growth of the company.
Well, you're very animated when you talk about workforce development. It's obvious that that topic means a lot to you. In closing, Ken, let's talk about you for just a minute. Let's talk about your plans for retirement. What were some of the considerations that led you to decide to retire now? And what is the next chapter going to look like for Ken Rueter?
Okay. So, I mean, it is a very personal decision, right? And my on the personal side, and it grows over time, in life moments. But I had always set a target of roughly somewhere between 40 and 45 years, and in our industry. And like I remarked, I'm in the 45th year, and that. And I kind of reassess that regularly, and where things are personally. And one of the things there were two things that really kind of weighed into it, because it wasn't a professional decision; it was a personal decision. I'm honored to be the CEO of this company and humbled by it, and honored to be a part of such an amazing industry. So first is I've got 6 grandkids. I've got 3 on the East Coast, 3 on the West Coast. And I reached a point in life where I was like, I want to see the 3 on the West Coast more than twice a year. I want to be a better grandparent than that. And yeah, we've worked really hard, but we're also very blessed, and so I feel that's the time to do that. The other is, I have an absolutely amazing wife. If you want to talk about partnerships, I could go on for a month about Ruth and partnerships. But at the end of the day, I want to spend more time with her. I enjoy my time with her. I am a better person by being around her. And so those were the two personal things. What does the future entail? Well, I'm going to be moving to what's called a limited service role in UCOR. That's targeted to be approximately 40 hours a month. And I'm going to be the executive director of the company. I'm going to be 100% here to support Jim Blankenhorn's transition into being the new CEO, with a commitment and a heavy focus on some of the things that are kind of unique to me and my style, to make sure that they can continue, which is a strong partnership from a labor management standpoint, effectuating our strategic plan, which again is clean up today for a NUCO tomorrow, and Amentum's trademark there, and then something we spent a lot of time talking about, which is stakeholder engagement and involvement. I'm on the Tennessee Chamber board. I'm on a number of different industry boards, and I want to continue those forward to support UCOR and moving forward, along with being a director on the board of managers for the company. I'll also be continuing in my role as a board member for the Southern Ohio Cleanup Company, and helping our COO Pat Timms was awarded the CEO job at SoCo, and he is up there now, and we're very committed. Amentum is very committed. UCOR is very committed. I think the Oak Ridge Corridor community is committed, to taking all the best practices here up to the Portsmouth community so that they can flourish from that.
Well, it sounds like you may be retiring, but you're going to be staying pretty busy.
Yeah, I'm committed to 480 hours a year.
Okay.
The other 1,600 are going to be with the super important people.
Yeah. Well, good
on the other side.
Good for you. Do you have any parting words for the folks you've been working with, your partners and stakeholders?
Yes, I have been absolutely honored and humbled, like I said, to be the CEO and in many cases the partners of so many folks. And I realize, I've been thinking about this a lot. I realize that without their support, without their endorsement, without their partnership, I would have lasted about 18 months, right? I mean, we know how it goes. If the community and the workforce doesn't want a head coach or a CEO or whatever terminology you want to use, they're not going to last very long. If the fans in the stands don't want it, guess what? You're going to go after one season. So to be able to be here, in the CEO role for 12 years, I'm just honored for that. And what I've been asking folks is that you in the first couple years you showed, I had a lot of wild ideas, and you showed me great deference, great respect, great patience, and I couldn't be more thankful for it. Everybody who makes up the partnership. My ask of folks is do the same for Jim Blankenhorn. He's an amazing leader in our industry. I don't think there's a better person that could be coming to this job and to take it into the future. An amazing strategy we have. He's been the chairman of our board for 6 years. So give him the same opportunity you gave me, and I can assure you, I give everybody my personal assurance and endorsement. You won't be disappointed.
Well, Ken Rueter, President and Chief Executive Officer of UCOR, congratulations again on your upcoming retirement, and thanks for joining us today on the podcast.
Thanks, Mike. It was great.